Hello, everyone. All right, so meet Heather. Heather's a product development manager, and she has 6 Scrum teams working for her. These Scrum teams are in charge of development for a pretty sophisticated financial application. Her teams get a lot of work done, and not only that, the teams enjoy their work. They have clear requirements and are able to focus on building excellent code. Plus, they're getting rave reviews from those clients. Heather is able to keep her teams happy and help them produce superb code because she knows what code her developers are working on, as well as what those client requirements are. She's able to easily adjust to the ever-changing requirements that those clients provide, sometimes on a monthly, weekly, or even daily basis. She can do all this through a bunch of different methods because her teams embrace the DevOps culture, follow an Agile methodology, and incorporate state-of-the-art tooling like Jira, Bitbucket, and Confluence. These things allow her to efficiently manage her teams while making sure that the stakeholders are informed about client requirements and other decisions that are made. Plus, she can spend time at her son's football games. She's also able to plan for when a team member or team members want to go on vacation, if they're sick, or if other urgent or critical defects come up that have to be addressed immediately. All this is possible because she understands what work is going on, and that helps her rearrange the development schedule quickly, as well as understand and communicate the trade-offs for readjusting that work. This helps her teams get the right things done at the right time. This is all made possible because she's following an Agile methodology using tools like Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket to help enable that development process. Now, it wasn't always this way, though. Heather and her teammates had to live through a fun and engaging 10-year transition from a waterfall methodology using outdated tools to an Agile methodology using state-of-the-art tools from the Atlassian tool suite. My name is JD Harbaugh, and I have been in IT for about 27 years now. I work for CGI Federal, and I'm based out of Bristol, Tennessee. I'm a DevOps advocate, and I'm here with my colleagues, Courtney and Mandy.
Hi, my name is Mandy Murphy, and I'm based out of Bristol, Virginia, which is right next door to JD in Bristol, Tennessee. I have 13 years of experience in process and tooling implementations, and for the last 6 years, I've been serving as our organization's Agile Transformation Lead.
And I'm Courtney Musgrove. I work at CGI Federal in our process, tooling, and compliance, and I'm based out of Lafayette, Louisiana. I've gained most of my 6 years of experience on this very agile transformation journey, so I'm excited to be here with you all today to share it with you.
Right, and we're here to tell you our story, how we went from a waterfall, disjointed organization and transformed that into a agile enterprise development team. So let's start real quick. Raise your hands. Who's ever been asked to do more with less? A few of you. Okay, cool.
What about silos? Have you experienced silos in your organization? Maybe your developers are throwing things over to testers, or your engineering teams to your ops teams? We have, for sure.
And have you ever wondered what your team is working on all day? Couple people. So these are some of the many challenges that we faced when we were leading up to our Agile transformation journey. So it's good that we're not alone. At CGI Federal today, we are supporting over 10,000 users in multiple data center instances. We have multiple release trains, all successfully following Agile methodologies. Most of them are following the Scaled Agile framework, also known as SAFe. And because we've implemented these Atlassian tools, and have shifted to that agile mindset, we've been able to move away from that whole throw it over the wall mentality. And we've also been able to automate a good bit of our CI/CD processes. We've also built repeatable templates, including Jira project templates and Confluence templates that allow us to really easily scale and onboard new teams and projects as needed. And it happens very frequently within our organization. And we are also doing all of this while supporting our government clients, which adds just an extra layer of challenges for us due to security standards and compliances that we have to meet. But how do we actually get here today? So Mandy's going to walk us through how we started with one project, and we've been able to expand and grow over the last 10 years.
So a little bit later, we're going to talk about some of the lessons learned that we had through this transformation. But I'm going to start by talking about our transformation and what it looked like for the last 10 years for us. So how did we go from an organization that wasn't always able to be flexible, collaboration wasn't optimal, our work was not always visible, our capacity wasn't really clear, priority wasn't understood, to the situation that JD told the story about Heather in the beginning? This timeline is going to walk us through what that transformation looked like and how we got there. So 10 years ago, our organization was not using any Atlassian products. In fact, we were using a lot of different products across the life cycle. Most of them were disjointed, they weren't connected, it wasn't very consolidated and concise. Our processes were pretty complex, pretty lengthy. It took a lot of time to get just through the process. So we knew that we needed a bit of a change. We felt like that there was a better way to do things, a better way to track work, but we wanted to be careful about how much change that we introduced at one time. We knew that changing our development model, changing all of our tools, and pushing for DevOps could be a lot for our members and could impact morale and satisfaction. We had heard about Atlassian at the time, but we wanted to start small. So we decided to implement one product for just a few of our teams. We started with Bitbucket for code management. After using that product for a while, we started to better understand the offerings that Atlassian had. We started to investigate Jira for project management, ticket tracking. We took the same approach of implementing that product for just a few of our teams. We took about a year trying to self-teach ourselves how we were going to use this tool, how it was going to fit in our organization, what processes that we needed to modify to make it work. And then we moved those first few teams in. And what that let us do is take those lessons learned to apply to future teams as we were ready to onboard them. After that, we decided to purchase Jira Service Management. Again, we started with one team. Now today we have many service desks, both internal and external in our instances, but we started with one of our help desk teams and we moved them into Jira Service Management. Again, we took that time to really understand how were we going to use that tool and how could it benefit us and how could we get the most out of it. Now, at that time, we were still operating in a very waterfall methodology. And even at that point, we started to recognize some benefits from consolidating our tools, from changing to more agile-like tools. We started to see better collaboration. We started to see more visibility within our work, and we were better able to create views that would allow us to have the right priority and capacity conversations without ever even changing the way that we develop software. As teams started using the products and realizing the success and sharing it within the organization, other teams would say, hey, how do we migrate into this tool set? How do we get in? What we learned looking back is that incremental approach that we took really helped increase our organization's adoption of the product. We didn't stand up a tool and force everybody in. We did it incrementally in a way that showed the success, a way that allowed us to learn those lessons and get better each time. About 5 years into that transformation, we started to pursue an Agile DevOps transformation. Now, there were a lot of pressures in the market that were pushing us towards that, but having an Agile supported tool in place really supported that effort. We were already starting to use some of the Agile terminology, but having the tool in place and having that functionality at our fingertips really sped up the transformation for us. After that, we implemented Confluence for requirements gathering and collaboration, and then later Bamboo for that additional CI/CD support. Today, as Courtney mentioned, many of our programs are operating under safe and agile methodologies using an end-to-end solution that does include a lot of Atlassian products. We've been able to move away from that throw it over the wall mentality. We've automated a lot of our CI/CD processes, and we can better adapt when requirements change. A lot of that success came from the Atlassian products that we were able to implement within our organization. In the tool, we've built repeatable templates and processes that can be easily implemented by other teams, and we focus our time on marketing that within our organization to increase the usage over time. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to JD, who's going to talk about how our focus on DevOps has improved the efficiency of our organization over this 10 years.
So how did we create and improve our DevOps culture? Two really big things that I wanted to highlight today were DevOps metrics and faster feedback for our developers. Those two things really helped our organization improve. In our transformation, we focused on two of these key metrics, which helped drive our automation efforts. The first metric is, how often can you deploy your code to test or production? And the second one is, how long does it take to deploy your code to that test or prod environment? So if you can deploy your code several times a day, excellent DevOps. And if it only takes you 10 minutes to deploy your code, again, excellent DevOps. But if it takes you longer than a day to deploy it and you have some manual steps involved, your DevOps probably needs a little bit of work. So when we analyzed our metrics, we found that it was taking around 2 days to deploy, and there was a lot of manual steps involved. So we took that 2-day manual effort and we transformed it into an automated process. We use Bitbucket for source control, we use Bamboo for our CI/CD processes, and Artifactory from JFrog for our artifact management. So now, whenever our developers want to deploy their code, they merge their changes into Bitbucket, and then they click a button in Bamboo. This kicks off a build and deploy process that builds it and deploys it to test, all in less than an hour. And they can do that multiple times per day, no manual intervention required. This provides faster feedback to our developers because they aren't waiting once they threw things over the wall to the operations team, who then had to build things manually, deploy things manually. Now it's all automatic. So our operations team is spending their time writing these automatic processes instead of doing those manual type of tasks. As this DevOps culture shift occurred, we saw less and less of that over the wall mentality. So getting back to Heather and what she's experiencing now in her work versus several years ago when things weren't as smooth. Back then, she wasn't as efficient. Her teams didn't know what everyone else was working on. She couldn't communicate with leadership on what enhancements would or would not get done if they accepted more work. They weren't always working on the same things or sometimes even the right things. She had to go through this Agile transformation to embrace more of a DevOps culture so that she could get to the point where she is today, where she can manage those 6 Scrum teams and not work 100 hours a week doing it. She can take in requirements from her clients, and she can adjust to the ever-changing landscape that is the development world. Just like most of us, Heather has had to do more with less. When you're working with Agile Scrum teams, Jira really helps those teams focus on the work that needs to be done and provide insight into the amount of work that they can do. So even though you're being asked to do more with less, you can accurately tell how much your team can do using Jira.
So as you can imagine, over the last 10 years, this Agile transformation journey, we have had many lessons learned. So we wanted to share a few of the top ones with you today. So one of the most important lessons learned is having your leadership support. If your leadership at any level is trying to go in a different direction, or they're not supporting or in alignment with the goals of your transformation journey, it's going to be really hard for your organization to have a successful transformation. Another lesson that we learned that was actually successful to us that Mandy had mentioned is we implemented these new tools and processes incrementally. So we started with just a few teams to really understand how is this going to work for us, or what wasn't going to work for us. And then we rolled it out at a larger scale once we had those things identified. And it was also easy to convince other teams to join in and use these tools and processes because we were able to show them a successful example. Going back to that process part, one thing that we weren't really open to doing initially was aligning our processes with these new Atlassian tools that we were implementing. But we learned pretty quickly that if you try to customize a tool to fit your existing process, as opposed to being open and using the tool how it's actually intended to be used, you miss out on taking advantage of the best practices that that tool offers, and you miss out on opportunities to become more efficient. So to this point, we suggest investing in training, especially for those team members or project members that are going to be responsible for actually implementing those new tools and processes within your organization. And this could be specific Atlassian trainings that they offer, or SAFe or Agile trainings. But this just really ensures that those members on your teams have the right understanding and the knowledge of that tool or that methodology to then share with others. We also found that this really helps create consistency, and that's one thing that's really important within our organization. You may have heard this phrase before, but we learned that perfection is the enemy of progress. So it's better to focus on that incremental implementation and that minimum viable product so you can be flexible and willing to change as you transform. If you're trying to get to perfection right from the start, it's probably not going to happen right away, and it's going to cause frustration. So we recommend trying something out, figuring out what works, and importantly, what doesn't work, and being flexible enough to pivot as you need to. And lastly, with any Agile DevOps transformation or implementing new tool sets, changing your culture is vital. So if the mindset doesn't shift as you go through that transformation, you're unlikely to gain and realize all of the benefits of that tool set and that methodology that you're trying to implement. So a couple of things that we recommend here is standing up a transformation committee. And these members will actually be responsible for managing and organizing the process changes, the tools that you're implementing, the different configurations and things like that. And this can help your organization drive towards that greater adoption of the Agile tools and best practices. We also found that it was beneficial to identify specific change agents within your organization at various levels. So this helps to ensure that greater adoption at those various levels as well. So all of this to say, so just a few of the lessons that we learned, some of them the hard way. But if we had to start this transformation journey all over again, these are some of the main things that we would really focus on. And this was just a really quick talk for you all, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight into our transformation story and how we're using an Agile DevOps mindset to embrace the Atlassian toolset. And the biggest takeaway that we want you all to have is no matter where you are in your transformation journey, if you're just starting to implement new tools or you're trying to shift to an Agile and DevOps mindset, that you can do it just as we did. And I know there were many of other great sessions today at this time, so we appreciate you all stopping by. And if you have any questions or want to come chat, we'll be hanging out after the session. But thank you all so much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.